Okay. Alrighty. So I just had to deal with some settings there. First time streaming on YouTube. Woo! Go that. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and over a couple game replays that I've had earlier today. I originally intended to stream these live, but I had some technical difficulties. Luckily, Cockatrice records every game you play, and you're able to pull it up as a replay, so that's what I'm going to do. So the first one I'm going to go ahead and go with is I'm going to show you guys a Nin French one-on-one game that I played. So this Nin French game was, go ahead and start it up here. This one was originally played because the guy was looking for a 1v1 game. I didn't want to have to wait for a multiplayer game, so I went ahead and hopped on in here. You can see right now, when we start up, I actually mess up. When I pull my general out, I put him in my hand as opposed to putting him in the stack zone, which is what you commonly do in Commander when you're playing on Cockatrice. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. We didn't mean to. So we go ahead and roll, and MathPunk here rolls a 1, and I roll a 17. I mean, just rolled 1. Critical failure there. So I let him know I'll play. And by the way, I'm Azonic, and he's a MathPunk. I'm going to be playing within the Paint Artist, as you can see here. This is what she does. She's blue and red, and X, blue-red, tap, deal X damage to target creature. That creature's controller draws X cards. The reason I like playing her is she's kind of like a Brain Geyser on a stick. So, not necessarily this deck, but my multiplayer deck is actually a creation based with Brian Wiseman. He actually helped me make the deck. But this list right here was actually a list that I pulled from MTG Top 8 that just placed 4th very recently in a large EDH one-on-one tournament. So I go ahead and let the guy know that since I put Nin in my hand whenever I first got my first hand, since you technically use Control M, which is the mulligan feature, it shuffled Nin back into my library, and so I had to fetch him back out. But I go ahead and start off here strong with a Flooded Strand. Oh, another important thing, if you're not used to French EDH is played with 30 life instead of 40, like a normal multiplayer Commander is. So, just for the sake of things, I'm going to kind of speed things up, and then I'll pause it whenever I need to pause them. But he goes ahead and plays out a Marsh Flats and cracks it. He grabs an Underground Sea. Or no, he grabs a Bayou, I apologize. Go ahead and continue on. I pay 2 and play out Nin. He had played an Elves of Deep Shadow on his first turn. Gonna go ahead and go here. So yeah, it was just really nice going for a turn 3 turn Mimeoplasm. Another thing you can see here is we can see his hand as well as mine, and during the game I'm not able to actually see his hand. That's just a feature of the replay. The replay allows me to see, you know, allows me to view what I'm doing, what he's doing. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually just going to use the fast forward on the parts that nothing really happened on. So here I go to play a land, some time happens. Go ahead and play out some mountain. I think I had some thinking to do there. I'm trying to remember. I'll go ahead and just get in with Nemesis. Another great reason Nemesis is just great in this format, as well as Legacy, is that he's incredibly hard for the opponent to deal with. So here I go ahead and pass the turn. It starts up. He goes ahead and Dryad Arbors for a crop rotation. And when I see this, I immediately think, oh no, he's going to go grab a blue source, and that is exactly what he does. He goes for a breeding pool, if I remember right. And so this spell's doomed for me, because the guy's obviously having trouble. He's stuck on 3 lands at this point, and he needs blue. His hand, he actually doesn't really need the blue as bad, but he definitely wants, like, the idea behind this deck is either to fire Gristlebrand off or get Mimeoplasm out as a copy of something real fast. So I think this spell's doomed for me at first when I first see it, so I'm sitting here sweating, because the only counterspell, the closest thing I have to a counterspell right now is Vincer, and at 4 mana, Vincer isn't going to do much. This Damnation hand he's got is actually his answer to Trinium Nemesis, and you're about to see that. Alright. So I'm still waiting on him to kind of make a move here. But as you can see, he goes ahead and taps out for 4, casting out Damnation. I Venser it, and thinking back, this was kind of a silly move. I probably should have just let him. Get rid of the true name here and save the Venser for a more threatening spell. But in all honesty, I mean, it means I get 5 damage in on the next turn as opposed to just 3, which could make or break. But here, I don't think it really did much. Like, I don't think it was worth doing the Venser. Here I go and throw out another island. If you notice too, almost all my draws since turn 3, I've drawn nothing but lands. This is kind of annoying, but it actually ends up paying off a lot later. So here we're going to go ahead and leave on thinking for a little bit here, and I go ahead and tap some mana. Cast the Faithless Looting, because I figure I don't got much to lose, and I can always toss 2 mountains. Another thing too, this deck really doesn't need the mountains as much. It's mainly a mono blue deck with some splashes of red into it, which is actually pretty typical of two color decks, at least within the French ban list. And I put the deck down in the description list if you guys are interested in taking a look at it. It's over in deck stats. I have it listed there, but you could also find it if you go to mtgtop8.com, and they have lists for Commander. And keep in mind that these are the French one-on-one lists, but they are actually a fairly good guideline if you're a spike player, even multiplayer, to get an idea of which cards are actually fairly good and which ones are not. In fact, if you want to see which cards are actually really good, just go look at the French ban list. If you're playing multiplayer, you should pretty much be playing as much of that French ban list as you can in the multiplayer. So here I go ahead and get that 5 damage in I talked about, dropping him down to 17, so I'm a good 10 life ahead of him, so I feel like I'm sitting at a good position. And he's obviously struggling here. I mean, he doesn't have, he's running out of mana, and this play right here that he does actually honestly surprised me. Even looking at his hand now, I'm still surprised he did it. I think the right call here would have been to recast the Damnation. Since it's Destroy All Creatures, he would have hit both of mine and only lost 1 elf. But instead, he goes to play the Urborg elf. So when he does Damnation, he's going to lose 2. Not to mention his much needed mana sources. So I feel like this was a misplay on his part. But coming back to my turn, I go ahead and untap. And here we have I drew, and it was just another snow-covered island, nothing major. And I keep thinking that Trick Bind is actually going to be really good, and the reason I say that is because a couple of the Mimeoplasm combos involve Necrotic Ooze, which are all activated abilities. So it'd be really sweet to have Mimeoplasm come down. Like if he somehow got a bunch of stuff in his yard and had Mimeoplasm come out, I could immediately Trick Bind it, and if I have Nin in play, I could easily Nin Mimeoplasm out, or just leave him there and be sad and try to, you know, steal him with one of my mini thief effects in the Nin deck. But like I said, I was completely taken off guard by the lack of the Damnation spell. So what I ended up doing this turn is swinging in again for another 5, just because I wanted to fit that little bit of damage back in here. So I did cycle Teleria West, grabbing a Tormod's Crypt, just to keep an eye on that graveyard. And here is something I misplayed on. What I should have done, since Teleria West makes me reveal the Tormod's Crypt, I should have just revealed the Tormod's Crypt and left it in hand. I thought I was being clever by putting it on the field. It would cause a threat to him and make him less wary of wanting to put things in the graveyard, or at least have to find an answer before dumping a bunch of stuff in the graveyard. And instead, I think I should have just left it in hand and let it be more wary of it being in my hand, which I think is still the right move, because I think he still would have been wary of putting things in the graveyard. And it's less, you know, it's obviously not, it doesn't cost me anything to play it, so it should have stayed in the hand. But you live and you learn. Alright, so here I hit him for another 5, drop him to 12. Like I said, I feel like I'm in a really good position. This whole entire game feels fairly dominating, mainly because of the True Name Nemesis. But I know I'm going to lose True Name here pretty soon, because I don't have a counterspell in hand, and I still know he has Damnation. And this is without being able to see his hand. So here we go. He drills, and he draws a Thoughtseize. And I wonder if this was the turn. I'm trying to remember. Which, also thinking back, like whenever he does Damnation and he loses both of his elves, he could have blocked, like at least blocked Venser to save himself 2 life. That doesn't sound like a ton, but I mean, if you know you're going to lose the creature anyhow to Damnation, it just seems kind of silly. So yeah, basically he waited a whole turn and lost an elf for nothing, casting Damnation. So this was just an incredibly bad play. I'm not sure what he had in mind, or what he was thinking he could do, but losing or casting Damnation this late was, I feel, not that great of a call, just because he lost the elf, and he obviously has been on 3 lands since turn 3, so... Or no, he's been on 3 lands since turn 4. No, yeah, turn 4, because turn 4 he got his 3rd land drop, that's right. So this is kind of interesting. So here it comes back to my turn. Let's see. Alrighty. I just ramped there basically and played out an end for the 2nd time. If you notice the counters on the side there, I basically use that. It's the storm count, but not only me, but a lot of players will use it for their commander count to remember how many times they've cast it. Because unlike Moto, this does not keep track of commander. Oh, and something else I want to bring up real fast. I actually do play on Moto too. I just don't have a lot of the cards that I have in real life, and so a lot of the cards I have in real life I like to play with, especially just because playing with cards that I own online help me play the decks better when I do play them. So right now we're let's see, we're going to, it's his turn. It's interesting to see his thought process here, because I mean, when he first starts casting the Thoughtseize, like I said, I have no idea what else is in his hand, so when he cast the Thoughtseize, revealing his hand to me, I immediately thought the Thoughtseize was going to come at me. Like, I thought he was checking for a counter to cast something really nasty, like whether it be like Entomb and then reanimate, or animate dead, or any of those. But he didn't have the mana for that, but... Oh, I guess he did. Yeah, he did. But, I was really surprised to see him Thoughtseize himself. I mean, this is the act of a desperate man right here. He Thoughtseized himself, showing me his hand, dropping Gristbrand. So in there, I immediately know I've got Stifle and Spell Pierce, so I know I have to force his Stifle, like, before he stifles my Tormod's Crypt. So here we get to have Mathbunk's hand, and I'll just set it over here. Now, actually, I can go ahead and close this out. We don't even need to see it, because we know we can see his hand right here in the replay. But worth a note. Get an Arid Mesa, and I'm kind of tired of drawing lands, so I immediately pop it and try to get those lands out of the deck. Just rip him up as much as I can. Or rip him out. I shouldn't say rip him up. So, we're just taking a look here, and I think I end up going with just a snow-covered mountain due to lack of options. There's not even a Steam Vince in this deck, which I found was kind of odd. But on the flip side, it's kind of not. I mean, it runs as many snow as possible for things like Scred, and I think Scrying Sheets in this deck. I'm not sure. Like I said, I didn't actually design this deck, nor do I own most of the cards that belong in this deck. And the only reason I didn't play with my multiplayer 1-on-1 deck is that it doesn't adhere to the French Banlist rules, which are no Soul Ring. There's a couple other things, like no Mana Drain, I think. I think Mana Drain's banned in French. I'd have to look, but mine runs those. I remind him here, friendly, that Thoughtseize is still on the stack. And then I go ahead and do an EOT effect, and this is where I'm trying to force that Stifle, and I'm going to make my Nin himself for, I think, what was the cost? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm trying to do it for 6. And he responds, of course, and he has to. I mean, like, if he lets me draw all 6 cards here, it's pretty much game over, because I'll be that much further ahead than him. So he's going to go ahead and pay the blue, cast Stifle, and then he's going to go ahead and pass the turn to me. I untap. Drawing a Lightning Bolt. My first thought when I see Lightning Bolt, I'm like, I don't think this is going to be a whole lot relevant, but he's at 10 life. So my game plan has kind of changed in the sense that I need to start turning things sideways and get him within the 3 life range so I can use Lightning Bolt as a finisher instead of a creature removal. I mean, it can still be a clutch creature removal if we need it to be, but at this point I can go. I start thinking I need to turn things sideways. But I leave Nin open because I still need the Nin. I still want to, get the Nin activation off. And that's kind of the other thing too. Like, even though Stifle, we did that to get Stifle out, it's a pretty bad Stifle for him. Because, I mean, I can still do it next turn. And I almost say, like, Stifling the Torment's Crypt would have been better. So, I had 2 choices, and you're about to see what I'm talking about here. He drew this Artisan Sorrow, and, like, I see this whenever it happens. And I had to actually catch him on a ruling here, because he, and I don't think it's necessarily that he missed it on purpose or anything. I think it was just he was having a hard time. But let's go ahead and see what he does. That's right, end of his own turn, which is, or no, that's end of, I'm doing that, I'm sorry, I go end of his turn. I go to activate the Nin. So in response, and immediately I'm thinking, okay, he must have drawn Trekbind or something else. But like I said, I had no idea he had drawn Artisan Sorrow. So he cast Artisan Sorrow here. Oh, hold on one second. Alrighty, sorry about that. We should be good. Let's go ahead and continue on. Actually, let me pause that. I just need to make sure the stream, like I said, this is my first time streaming on YouTube here, so just want to make sure everything's going to be looking good. Okay. So the main thing that happened there was whenever he activated the Artisan Sorrow, I had to tell him no really fast because I sacked the Tormod's Crypt in response, exiling his graveyard, and I had to let him know that he didn't get the scry since his Artisan Sorrow no longer had a target. He had to go ahead and let it, not do the scry. So I had to ask him to shuffle afterwards, which, I don't know. Like, I could have just let him with the cards he had already saw, but he didn't move them, so it's not like it really mattered. Main point though, and people are gonna ask this, is like, if we look at the 2 graveyards, or I'm gonna look at his exile. He had Gristlebrand, Elves of Deep Shadow. In my yard, I have True Name Nemesis and Venser. So True Name and Gristlebrand are both really, really good, juicy targets for Mimeoplasm here, right? But the thing is like, if I let him draw, then he wins. So I couldn't let him draw. So like, I'd rather him have the True Name Nemesis, especially when I'm sitting at 26 life and he's at 10. Like, I could ignore him all day. In fact, it would get him, like, if I started just beating him with one droppers, I could get him down and win. But at this point, what we ended up doing is we ended up getting a successful Nin at the end of his turn and drawing 7 cards. And this gives me a lot of options, and I actually feel like I'm in a really good position after this. I mean, as I should. So, throw out a Mystery Forest, crack it. I mean, like, look at the answers. I mean, just look at these answers I got in hand. I got Counterspell, Merfolk Looter, Skred, Think Twice, so I got some more juicy draw here. Cyclonic Rift, Dissolve, and then, of course, the 2 that were already in my hand, Lightning Bolt and Trickbind. But the main thing here that I'm really, really excited about is this Merfolk Looter, because I can get him in play, I can start beating with him. And if he was to do something like Threat on the Mimeoplasm, I can, start filtering for answers if I needed more. I already have plenty of answers. But yeah, so I immediately cast the Merfolk Looter and pass the turn because I know my game plan now. He's at 10 life. I've just got to hit him 6 times, which sounds like a lot, but if I can get Nin out, we can cut that time in half, right? Beat up the 1/1s. The exciting French commander, right? Alrighty. So this is gonna be fairly fun. Alright, so it goes to his turn. I didn't see his didn't see it, but I go ahead and go ahead and he taps out here and he casts the Mimeoplasm, which is, you know, pretty much what we knew he was going to be doing since last turn, when he was trying to get rid of the Tormod script. So he's going to cast Mimeoplasm, he's going to go ahead and label his targets. Oh, hold on one second, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself real fast. Alrighty, so I'm back now. Sorry about that, I have kids. So he casts the Mimeoplasm, and he's going to go ahead and target Triname Nemesis and my Venser. And I tell him to hold up, and this is because I was having a complete blonde moment. I was thinking, hey, I could go ahead and trick bind the Mimeoplasm ability when it first comes out to make him not be able to get anything. But that's an Enter the Battlefield ability, and trick bind only gets activated or triggered. And I don't believe, and I'd have to, you know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't believe an Enters the Battlefield ability counts as a triggered ability. So otherwise I would have done it and caused his Mimeoplasm to just come in as a 0/0 and die. But I ended up telling him never mind and leaving him with a Venser and, or with a Triname Nemesis with the Venser token or counters on him. So like I said, you guys can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but that's what I assumed was, that's what I assumed. And I just tell him I read the card wrong in my hand. Like, just a... I don't know, like, it's not like he knew what I was about to do, so... But I still feel bad for telling him to... or asking him to hold up while I sorted out my own discrepancies in the rules. So he goes ahead, and he's got his little 5/3 Triname Nemesis, which means that, you know, in 5 turns I could be dead. But... in 6 turns, he could be dead, because we win this race, right? But the reason I'm not afraid is I have a Cyclonic Rift that I can overload at the end of his turn anyhow, so it's not going to matter. And again, I have another blonde moment and I claim that I didn't have to kick it, but that's actually not true at all. I had to have kicked it, because this changes each instance of target with each, so therefore it's not targeting, so the spell gets around the Triname Nemesis removal and bounces the Mimeoplasm. This Cyclonic Rift pretty much ends the game right here. I mean, over there, oh, there's nothing else he can really do at this point. So, if I remember right, again, it does actually play out, but I'm going to go and fast forward a little bit because it gets a little bit boring from here out. Oh, hold on one second.